Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Okay. So welcome to the Rad Dad Show. Who are you?
My name is Brant Bjork.
And how do people know you? Why are you here?
Well, I'd like to think it's because I'm a rad dad.
Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, so some of the bands you want to give a little background to the people that don't know you.
Um, I'm a musician, and uh, I play drums in bands like Kyuss and Fu Manchu, and then I've been a solo artist since 1999. And I've been rocking and rolling around this world for a long time.
Nice. And you're a dad. Okay, so how many
I
kids do
am
you
a
have?
dad, yeah.
How many kids?
I have two boys, 10 and 8.
10 and 8. Oh, I have a 9-year-old, so right in the middle. I get it. Care to share their names?
Yeah, the 10-year-old's name is Swan, and the 8-year-old is Brazil.
Nice. So you've already kind of proclaimed it a little bit here. Do you consider yourself a rad dad?
Well, being a parent, as you know, is very, very, very challenging, and it's equal in its amount of reward, but it is very, very difficult work. And yeah, being a rad dad, it's interesting um, when I saw the name of your, you know, of this uh, uh, when I saw Rad Dad, I thought, wow, that's so cool, because I do have a daily mantra that I kind of, um, or just like, I guess you could say, something that I remind myself throughout the day, which is like, just practice being a rad dad and a glad dad, and not a mad dad and not a sad dad and not a bad dad. So when I saw that your show is Rad Dad, I was like, wow, that's so cool, man.
I like that. So where does that mantra come from? Like what's is it that just your personality? It just is that something you've learned over
Yeah,
time?
yeah. It's just something that, like, I always like to uh, simplify things. It helps me um, not overthink things that can easily drag you into that process of overthinking and overanalyzing. What's the saying called, like, analysis to paralysis.
Yeah.
So what helps me not fall into that trap, and as we know, parenting it's happening by the seconds, by the minutes, and things could be great in one moment, and then 6 minutes later it's like a full catastrophe. So I just have to remind myself, hey, you know let's just let's be a rad dad, and let's be a glad dad. Like, even when things are really difficult, or there's a blowout, and there's a challenge in the house, I just have to remind myself, be a glad dad. Like, this is an opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity to connect. It's our mistakes and our challenges that I mean, that's how we evolve. you know Not just as dads, but as a species. It's like we evolve through challenge. So whenever there's a challenge, I can't get, of course I want to get mad, or I want to get angry or frustrated, but I just have to remind myself,
Gotta keep yourself in
be
check.
rad.
So why do you consider yourself a rad dad then?
um well, there's the literal um concept of, like, I come from Southern California, and I mean, in the neighborhood, and in the culture I grew up in, I mean, you were learning the word rad from the age of 7. I mean, you know, in my neighborhood, it was like every kid was rad. You had to have rad clothes. You got to talk rad. You got to get rad on your bike. You get rad on your skateboard. That movie was rad. That dude's so rad. So I grew up in rad culture, you know. And so, and, you know, and me and my friends, you know, and then I grew up with them and my musician friends and my skateboarding friends. I mean, you know, we've always applied the term rad, even into adulthood. It never stops. We're still 13 years old. And so now I am a dad. And, you know, so there's just this like literal, like, yeah, I'm a rad dad. I come from rad culture and I'm a rad dad. But really, I also think I'm a rad dad because I'm committed to being a dad, you know. I'm committed to whatever the reality is going to be for me being a father. I'm committed to that. And it's, as we were saying, it's hard. It's hard. And I want to be and do for my boys that wasn't for me and what I didn't get. And that's pretty rad. That's a pretty rad commitment.
Is that something that's kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for? So, you know, talk about like things that you didn't get. Is that something that, you know, kind of your upbringing, for example, and you didn't get from your parents? Do you try to like do what your parents didn't do with you? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, we're all the result of our parenting or lack of, you know, everybody. And some people had parents that were really weren't engaged. Some people had parents that were abusive physically. Some people had parents that were gone working all the time and didn't pay much attention. I mean, everyone's the result of there's, you know, it's hard to be a perfect parent. And what did I say? I saw something the other day that said, don't try to be a perfect parent or parent perfectly. I can't remember what it was, but it was alluding to the fact that parents, we're not perfect, and we do our best, and parents have circumstances and things they have to work with in order to, you know, within their situation as a parent, what they have to offer to their kids. But yeah, I mean, you know, so that goes without saying that, like, you know, growing up, my situation with my parents was far from perfect. And you know, but they had their issues and they had their challenges, and I wasn't, you know, getting on the specific topic of fatherhood and dads. Like, yeah, well, you know, when I was at a pretty young age, my dad just didn't fully, I think, wasn't able to really develop a close relationship with me, and just kind of gave up. And to this day, we don't really have much of a relationship. Now, mind you, he's my adopted father. So I was adopted, and I've since gone on to meet my blood mom and dad, and you know, my dad's awesome and he's a great guy and stuff. But it's a complicated story. We don't really have to go into it now. But so he just kind of just let go. It was just like, you know. So, but getting more to a more positive part of that story. Like I said, I've taken. I'm trying to heal from that experience and learn about what it means to be a son, but also a father, and then apply it to my kids now and say, hey, I get it, man. You know, it's hard, and I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on you. You know, I'll be here even when I'm bugging you and you're bugging me. I'm going to be here, and we'll get through it together. You know.
Nice. I like that. What are the most rewarding aspects of being a dad?
Um, God, what are the, I mean, I think just sharing experiences, um, and for personal selfish reasons, I think, you know, um, I always have to also remind myself that like, kids are never going to be able to understand the adult world. And I think as adults, we're so caught up in the adult world and the responsibilities of it, and we're impatient, and we want the kids to come up to the adult world and understand what we're dealing with. That's impossible. Kids can't do that. They're in the fantasy land of youth,
Hmm.
and what's awesome about being a dad and an adult is that if you really, really try and take the time and you really tap into the discipline, we can return we can return to the fantasy land of our youth and engage with them there. Um, they can't come to us, but we can actually go to them. But
So,
it's hard.
yeah. So how do you do that? Like, how do you personally do that? Like you've already kind of mentioned, you're into rock and roll music. You play in a lot of bands. You grew up in skateboard culture. Is those sorts of things? So does it go back to sharing your experiences with them to kind of go
Sure,
to
of
their level? Or?
course. Yeah, of course. My kids love, um, you know, my boys love rock music. Um, Tonight we were driving home from an art class, and my oldest boy Swan, he just kept listening to War Pigs by Black Sabbath over and over. He's like, he's really discovering Bill Ward, and he loves his drumming, and he's like, oh, it's so cool. And he loves Kiss. He loves all the bands. I was really still love Kiss. We're huge Kiss fans, and I love Peter Criss, and he's so I'm, and they both my boys skateboard. We go to the skate park 3 times a week. We surfed all summer. They love soccer, and because I love sports, and of course skateboard and all this. So movies, we watch a lot of movies and do a lot of artwork, and but I also read with them, and other just basic uh, scholastic things. But yeah, I mean, those are moments where I am transported back to um, that innocence of when I was a child, and I'm there and I'm understanding. Like, it's exciting, man. You're hearing, like, they're listening to Kiss Alive, and I got them an original Kiss Alive record for Christmas, and they're listening to it, and it's like, I'm like, yeah, I remember when I was your age, or even younger, and I remember the guy across my neighborhood mentor who got me in drums and Kiss. He'd play me Kiss Alive all the time, and like I was like wild, and then we get to talk about that, and we get to, you know, um, communicate, and like I will be out in the pool swimming, and after we're done swimming, I always tell the boys, all right, now it's 5 minutes in the jacuzzi for conversation, and then we just sit in the jacuzzi and talk, and about anything. So, all right, what do you want to talk about? And we just start talking, and it's all about communication, and it's all about me being able to understand and engage, and I didn't have that with my adopted father. I mean, I've had maybe as a kid, I probably had 3 conversations with him, so and half of those were probably lectures. So it just wasn't there, and I don't demonize him, and I don't hate him, and I don't have any of that. I think he's a great man, and I'm very grateful for him giving me what he had in my developing years. Um, um, but yeah, being able to go back, and being able to be present with your kids, and not not try to drag them up into the adult world. Well, listen, this is how it works. And I mean, that's what my dad used to tell me. Well, I don't know what you think you're going to do, but you're going to pay rent. You're going to pay bills, and good luck with this music thing. It's a pipe dream. And, it's like, but he came from World War II, hard times. He came from hard times. So the world is, for him, is a place. It's a battle, and you better get ready because it's coming for you. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a different perspective for sure. In what ways has fatherhood changed you? Has it?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're a father and it hasn't changed you, then you're not hanging out with your kids. You're not you got kids and then went somewhere else. That's if it hasn't changed you. Yeah, it's. I mean, I've become more responsible. I've becoming less selfish, and I think really and this might actually, now that I think about it, this could very, very much be an additional, if not the answer to your prior question. I think, being a father and being a parent, it's taught me about love, and once again, I'd never felt that as a kid. That wasn't something in my home. Love was something I knew was out there in the world, and I was very curious about it, and I knew that I needed it and wanted it, but I didn't know where it was, and I didn't know how to get it. Love, how I got love was listening to records, music. Music loved me, and it soothed me, and it made me feel secure in a world where I didn't feel secure, in an environment where I didn't feel secure, and with parents that weren't making me feel secure. The Beatles made me feel secure. Jimi Hendrix made me feel secure. And later, like the Ramones, I started getting the Ramones. I'm like, yes, this is a circus, and I want to join. I feel like I can be dysfunctionally unloved, and I belong here. But with my kids now, not to mention my wife, I'm learning what it means to love and be loved. And as an old sound man of ours in Kyuss years ago used to say, you got to learn about love. And he was so right. You got to learn about it. It's not something that actually is, wired in completely. Like, you got to learn about it. At least I had to. Kids help you do that.
And yeah, is it a different kind of love, or when you say love, is that something you just does it have a broader kind of stroke? Like, is it different kinds of love, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, I think there's, I'd say ultimately there's only, as Bob would say, I think there is only one love. And you're either practicing and accepting and tapping in, or you're not. And I think these artists like the Beatles, is like John Lennon, he had a hard one too, John. He had a hard up. He was fatherless and was raised by his aunt, and apparently that wasn't much of a situation that he was bragging about. And but like, when he's starting to search his soul in the late 60s, and they're already kind of tapping in the mid 60s, but I think by the 68, I think he's not kidding when he says all you need is love. I think he had discovered like that it's actually that simple. And kids definitely help adults and parents specifically realize that, and not necessarily like kids are messengers of love. I mean, because kids come out ready to cause all kinds of problems, but I think there's just this love that you have for them and they have for you. That's, I mean, I'm sure you can ask 10 people, their definition of love and get 10 different answers. But it's still just the one love that I think ultimately we're all talking about, you know.
Did you have any fears of becoming a dad?
Well, yeah, no, of course I had fears of being a father. I think my fears were more an extension of like, oh my gosh, the world is so crazy and it's such a, I want to protect them and I don't want them to get hurt. I get, you know, being a protective parent, you know, and you know, the world is full of monsters and I just don't want the monsters going after my kids. And so, and I'm sure I had fears too, and still have fears of like, you know, I know that I'm still working out issues from when I was growing up. And so it's tough because I'm trying to heal and be a positive parent at the same time. And I think sometimes I have fears that, you know, by the time my kids are 18, they're just going to be like, well, you did your best, Dad, but I mean, you know, what are you gonna do, man? I mean, look at you, you know, you're just some rocker who's, you know, been put to the ringer and like, all right, well, we'll see you later, you know, like, you know. So yeah, I have fears and stuff, but they're there. The fears are there for motivation and to keep me centered and keep me, you know, just doing what I have to do, you know.
Is there
They
like
serve a purpose.
is there any specific fear that you had? Like, you know, like some people when I ask this question, you know, is that fear of, you know, being a provider? Was that ever an issue, or is there something that kind of sticks out, or is it just?
Well, I mean, when they were really young, you know, when they were really young, I was touring still very heavily, and they didn't fully understand. This guy would just be there and then be gone, you know. But as they became older and started to become more conscious and start to connect the dots, they start, Swan in particular, my oldest, he started to get, you know, my younger one, Brazil, is so, I mean, he's so independent. He's like, yeah, get out of here, Dad. You know, like, get out of here. We need more space around the house. But Swan would get upset when I would leave on tour. And it started to bum me out, you know. And I started to have fears that like, you know, what did I do? You know, I had kids and then but I'm also a traveling musician. This is just right out the gate. It's a conflict of interest. And in all honesty, I started to talk to my manager of that time and say, yeah, you know, I'm really starting to see the effects on my kids from me touring. I don't know, man. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do this. I mean, and you don't get these years back, you know. And yeah. I'm like, I started to have fears of like, you know, I've already toured the world 100 times over. I don't need to do that anymore. You know, it's like, I'm not going to get a chance to be a parent with them in these ages again. And it was interesting because I was actually telling him I might have to take a couple of years off and just be present and be a parent and be accountable for these kids and being a father. And then what was interesting is that when the whole COVID thing happened, in a weird way, I kind of got my my wish because I became a full-time stay-home dad, and I'm not kidding when I say it's kind of been a blessing because I'm now on a level with both my boys, not to mention my wife again, that I might not I might not be at this level with them had it not been this year and these moments now where I have to be home, you know. So and I see what it's done for me as a father, and it's a really strange blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, conversations I've had with people, and not just through the podcast, but in general, it's like a kind of a blessing in disguise, and it really put a lot of things in perspective. Sounds a bit cliche, but I don't know. At least I feel that too. It's you kind of don't have that hustle and bustle as much anymore. And yeah, like me and my son, who's 9, it's like, hey, let's go watch this movie. We don't have to be anywhere. We don't have to run out to well, here in Canada right now where I live, hockey and most of the team sports have been canceled. So we don't have to run out. It's like, okay, what do you want to do? Let's go get some ice cream. We're not on a schedule, and it's been kind of nice in that sense. So I completely get that. You touched on a little bit about this. We don't have to go too deep. Did you want to maybe describe the relationship with your dad?
Well, there is no relationship, and I think there lies the unfortunate reality. I have a saying, which is, if you communicate, then you can relate, and if you can relate, then you can create. But it first starts with communicating, and but if you don't communicate, then there's no ability to actually find some kind of relating between one another, hence the term relationship. And if you are able to communicate and discover that you relate, then there will be a relationship. And if you have a relationship with someone, chances are you're going to be able to go into creation mode and create, whether it's a family or a partnership, or you could create art just for creative sake, but he's not a communicator. He didn't really communicate with me. He more just kind of like, he comes from the military and stuff. So it's all about just kind of telling me what's going to happen and not talking with me. And then therefore we weren't able to relate. It was always about like, I don't relate to this kid. I don't know. We're just so different. Yeah. And then therefore we weren't able to create anything together, a relationship. There's no foundation there to build anything upon. So, he's just him and I'm me. And, he was, he was there, and I'm grateful for him, providing, we had a roof over our head, and food in the fridge and clothes and, all that stuff. But so I'm grateful for all that, but there's just no relationship at all.
So how did you learn, like, so it doesn't sound like he was very much like a model of communication, but it seems like you are almost like, an exemplary model, with your kids. It's like communication time in the jacuzzi. So where do you think you learned that? Is that something you're just conscious of, and you said, I don't want to be that way, I'm going to have this conversation, or is it just more life experience and just that's who you are?
Well, once I was pretty young when I come to the conclusion that I wasn't having and was probably not going to have a relationship with my adopted father. And then I immediately just went into like, well, I'm just going to kind of raise myself. And that's essentially what I did. And part of that was being in various relationships with friends or girlfriends or whatever. And through those experiences, slowly start to recognize my dysfunctions and my flaws, and And then I mean, and I don't know, maybe cliche is the word of the night. I started to grasp for, it's clear that I like to read, and I started to grasp for books that could help me with my psychology and with my spirituality. And because again, like I said, my father was military. My parents weren't religious. My adopted parents were religious at all. I didn't grow up with any of that. And I felt like I needed to teach myself spiritual and psychological health, how to develop it. And through that, I started to also read about simple things like communication, how to just talk to people, and how to, and also because I knew I was a musician, and that it was the irony of me becoming a professional musician was that I'm not, I don't really I wanted to be on the stage because I don't like being around a lot of people. And then when it started to transition into me being a front man, I was like, oh God, which I didn't plan on, to be honest, which is another ironic twist to my path. I realized that I was going to have to start talking to people and engaging more in crowds and public situations, and it's like it's like anything, there's so much in human development that we just take for granted, or just think that it's just natural. Like, I was such I was so naive as a young parent that and just as a person in general, I actually thought kids just came out doing the right thing. and then you just like, oh, they're just so beautiful and innocent. They just do the right thing. And it's our job as a parent to like, just keep them on the path of them. If you're doing the right thing, just stay there. And we're going to help you make sure you stay on that path. I mean, I discovered with my boys quick that like, oh, they come out like doing the wrong thing. And then it's our job to say, yeah, no, I know you want to do that. I know it's actually almost instinctual for you to do that, but that's not going to work for you for too much longer. You're going to have to want to do this. This is going to be a more appropriate, a more healthy path, and then we develop them, what I didn't get in those developing years, I had to teach myself as an adult,
Get that. So let's maybe just transition to kind of what you right now, and maybe away from the parenting stuff. What's the future look like for you, in terms of music wise, career, that sort of thing? Obviously COVID has changed a lot of things, but are you still creating, making music? I'm assuming you are. I'm sure you are. Are you looking forward to getting back out there, or are you liking this being at home dad? And
it's it's both, which is it's funny. That's a word that a good friend of mine and I kind of decided that was our one of our new religions, which was the both. It's both. everything is both. I'm looking forward to spending more time at home with my family, and then I'm looking forward to going back to work. I am probably I'm expecting to not travel and do much on a stage, even in this year of 21. And I'm okay with that. But I will be recording some records, and there's a live stream event that I did with a new band that I put together called Stoner, with my solo band.
Nick, right?
Yeah, my solo band drummer Goot and Nick Oliveri. I'm pretty much going to be focusing on that, I think, this year, because my solo band, my bass player lives in Berlin, my guitar player lives up in Seattle. And so it's just near impossible to do anything in the near future with my solo band. But with this band Stoner, and it's kind of cool because I think it's really reflective of this last year and this whole experience with the kids, because Nick and I grew up together. We were kids together, and Stoner, just the band, the sound, the songs, the name itself. For Nick and I, it's like kind of like our return to youth, you know. So it's a real, it's really poetic in a way. It kind of represents this kind of return to. It's like going home. we're at home, so we're going, staying at home. We're going
Nice.
home. You know?
Right. I like that. I just want to know a little bit about Bunny Racket. Like, did you start that band, or is that just?
No, I actually a friend of mine that I met years ago in Australia, Andy Walker. He's a talented guy from Australia who had a band, and whenever I went down there to play in Australia, his band would jump on the bill, and we just became friends. And he came over to my house in Venice, in LA, one time. I just got a text. Hey, mate, I'm on my way to LAX. I'm on my way back to Melbourne, but I wanted to stop by and say hello. I said, yeah. So he stopped by real quick, and I actually had some people over and things were jumping. So he's all, yeah, I don't, real quick, I just want to throw this idea at you, and I got to split to the airport. But what do you think of I want to do a rock and roll record for kids, and I want you to produce it and help me write songs and maybe play drums on it. I was like, yeah, all right, cool. I'm totally down with that. He's all great. And then he just split. And then he started to send me songs, and the songs were great. So I helped him produce the record and played drums on it. And he actually ended up doing another one. He did two. So there's a second one. I don't know. I think it just came out.
Yeah, it came out, I think I want to say in November.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. And it's great, but that's all him, and that's all his, it's his brainchild and his passion project. And I had a lot of fun being involved. He immediately went to the next level with wearing costumes and getting a band together, and it looked like a lot of fun. I mean, I had to I had to stop at the point that I was at. I couldn't get involved to that degree just because I'm so busy and all that stuff. He's in Australia, just and to be perfectly honest, I don't know that I said, oh, I don't know. I think this part's for you. But anytime in the studio, I'm into it. But I couldn't help but be excited and about the concept, and be more than happy and motivated to get involved and support it and help them, for the kids, man. Rock and roll for the kids.
Yeah, I thought it was a great project, and I like that first record. I introduced my son to it, a couple of years ago, and we rocked out to it. But my son, his musical things have changed. He's really into the Beastie Boys, and actually Black Sabbath, as you mentioned, Black Sabbath and Beastie Boys is kind of on constant rotation in our house.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, when you're 9 years old, I mean, it's like we think, wow, that's so young. But like when I think about when I was 9, I mean, I was already exactly like I am now. I mean, so it's interesting, Andy, and the Bunny Racket. It's like the music's good enough to where I think it'll continue to have an audience for, it's clever and it's fun. But really, it's that it's a pretty young age that's gonna really sink their teeth into that. But then I think it's fair to say that they're gonna grow out of it very quick too.
Yeah,
they're gonna discover the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, exactly. So. I get it. Okay, last two questions here. I don't know. This one always puts people on the spot. I should have mentioned it in an email. Do you have a favorite dad joke? Do you have
a favorite dad joke?
Yeah, you can share.
Favorite dad joke. Gosh, I don't know that I got to be honest. I don't know that I know any dad jokes.
I couldn't answer this question either, so that's okay. This is the last question. It's just really any fatherly words of wisdom to any of the rad dads out there, or any new dads out there listening or watching this.
Yeah, well, I mean, words of wisdom. I'd have to resort back to what I said, my daily mantra, because again, I want to keep things simple, and I don't want to bog people down with too much and as if I would be one to suggest all that for any dad anyways. But like I said, it's just remember that you have a choice, even when things are bad, like to be a rad dad and a glad dad, instead of being a sad dad or a mad dad or a bad dad, and just remind yourself of that throughout the day.
I love it. Let's end it there. I really
Cool.
appreciate your time, Brant, and it was a pleasure, truly an honor to speak to you. And yeah, wish you all the best.